Hello everyone, Jalen here from Infinity, and if you haven't noticed, this is a little bit of a new screen recorder I got. I hope it's better than Bandicam, because I felt I was a little annoyed at how desynced it can be sometimes for my audio and the video. So, I'm going to be using this for a while. If this is better, please tell me down in the comment section below. I just want this to be enjoyable and not annoying for any of you when you're watching the content and then, like, my voice spoils it because my voice would come out before the video, so stuff like that. Um, but today I'm here to bring you deck discussion on Raging Spirits. Like I said in the Fight Me episode, this is Joe's list. But basically I'll be going over not the pros and cons, because that's well, similarly, but like I said, this is more on the deck, how it works. What do you do mid, late game? If it has any true weaknesses, it's bad matchups, and I forgot to go over good matchups. But I think a rush deck, you can know what its good matchups are, like decks that keep an open center, maybe other rush decks, such things. Um, but without further ado, I want to get on to the deck discussion. Now, Raging Spirits. I'm never gonna get used to their names. Raging Spirits are pretty interesting for an Ancient World archetype. They're really good in a sense where, compared to their Japanese names, where they're dragon heads, now they're Raging Spirits, so they do not count as dragons. So a very great thing about this deck is it's not susceptible to all the dragon hate. The problem with this deck, though, it's not really happy about how it can't be used in Dragon Iron anymore. Like, this is like practically the only dragon-based thing where it's not going to be allowed into that kind of deck, which is which is a bit of a shame, but it's okay because this deck works fine on its own. But one thing about this deck, early game, this deck can actually build the most advantage, where if you're going first, it's just the greatest thing, because putting out a body that just, any of these guys, just redirecting attacks, so it's like your opponent now has to have a game plan for when you, like, just call one of these. You can do either 3 crit, 2 crit, and, like, on the first turn, this has a ton of power, but not that much defense. Going against Dungeon World, this wouldn't be the best opener, because Pillar Fire would annoy you if you don't have a Wrath Trigger. Or Demonica if you actually want to nullify the spell. But a great opener are probably these two, Oni Street and Billion Knuckle. Billion Knuckle, I think, is the better one, even though it's also Pillar Fireable. It has Soul Guard and it has built-in counterattack. So it's a really, really good setup with this deck. Like, it's pretty much, you can play like triple formation, but at the same time you're playing defensively. It's like Demon Go to Arc as a deck, which is what their effects are, but I mean in a sense where you can keep calling monsters that have very low lifelink, which is a really great thing about this deck. They just have really low lifelink, so they don't take much. And then even Ricky here can get rid of lifelink, so it takes less damage. But one thing that's really annoying is, like, when I was like playing in the Fight Me episode, like you see, I can run low on life like a lot. Maybe just because it's Joel's build, but since this and like Buddy Gift are my only source of life gain, it's just like really quick to run out of life, because you need life for Demonica, Glacies, one of your draw cards, Divine Dragon Creation. You need it for Wrath Trigger. Like, it's so annoying to keep up your life. If it wasn't for, like, and if I drew Ricky more, like, I would have just gained a Buddy Gift a lot earlier, and I could have just not cared if one of my size 3s died first, because I don't take the lifelink. But its early game is really, really strong. Mid to late game, mid game, it's really good because Thunder Tornado is just absolutely great to deal with set spells. I mean, of course, Dragon Throne and any item played in that kind of deck would not be affected by this, but any other deck would just be like ruined. Like Crimson Fist losing a weapon is just, oh my god awful for them. And any triple formation deck, Thunder Tornado can help keep them in check. Most decks nowadays have really low defense, so Dragon Thunder is a great counter removal card to help you in the long run. Dr- Dragon Prudence, I want to say I like this card because, yay, Ancient World finally got a null. Like I said, they really need one when I did pros and cons way back when. But one thing I think is a very problematic thing is that this doesn't combo with your Raging Spirits, because since it nullifies an attack, it makes it show, well, if you don't know what nullify means, the attack never practically existed. So if your opponent, say, like, attacked into Billion Knuckle and you Dragon Prudence, you don't get counterattack because they never technically attacked you. You nullified it. So pretty much you're not going to get the counterattack from his ability, so it doesn't seem that beneficial to Dragon Prudence. Only time it's useful is when a very powerful monster is going to attack it single-handedly, so then you make them think twice when you nullify it, and then if they want to try and link attack, and then you could probably have a Raft trigger, or if you're actually playing it, you can play their Drago Energy clone, which is Satisfy Dragon. But just like Joel said, he probably doesn't recommend playing this because it's not that great, because it only helps you at 9, and every deck can hit practically 10 or more. Like, this is the only one that goes to 10, like, goes to 10 if you use that, and then you can use it on Ricky, but, like, it's okay. Like, it's still a good card to run, but, like, it's just not that satisfying to try and waste deck space on this. Um, but mid game, this deck can really control your opponent. Just all the counter attacking you can do with Raft Trigger, or just keeping them from hitting your life points by redirecting attacks. It's really, really great. But late game, I think this deck really struggles. Like, when you're low on life, then this becomes a dead draw. This can somewhat be a dead draw, because then you don't want to lower your life so your opponent has a better chance at beating you. And then this weapon is so bad. Like, Drago Fearless, it's decent for the 2 critical. It's not good so much for the power. I would prefer it if, like, they made a Buddy Sword, but it cost a gauge. Just 1 gauge and no life. Like, that would have been fine. Even if it was 1 critical, like 1 crit, 5,000 power. Like, that would have been just fine. But, nah, a Drago Fearless clone is, like, okay, I guess. And just all these monsters, like, some of them, like, you don't play any, like, Gauge Excel, once again, just because this is, like, the only Gauge Excel. So then Raft Trigger costs Gauge, most of your size 3s cost Gauge, especially Gang the King, like, who's just, like, your boss monster you bring out when shit's going downhill, so then you just call a cart. I mean, I want to like Gang the King, but I have problems with him. One, he has a good 5 critical, 4,000 defense is terrible, like, atrocious as hell. And he does have the redirect like all of them, but he gains more power. If the ability said either 3 and 3 to his power and defense, or just 6,000 to his defense in general, I would have liked that much more than 6,000 power, because he's already got 7k, so there's not many things that can wall him. He's already got 5 critical, like, with penetrate. Like, I don't think, and, like, you can have a weapon and a Ricky on your side, so you don't really honestly need that more power. Like, that's just, like, overkill that you don't need. And also, he costs 3 gauge. You need 3 more Raging Spirits. At least it's not different names. Like, if it was different names, this would have been more difficult, because, like, the only other Raging Spirit that could work in this deck is, like, this guy. And he's not that great. I mean, he's okay in some situations, but you're better off just playing all these guys. Now, as of draw power, of course, this is Ancient World. Ancient World has great draw power, like, just 2 cards that are your entire draw power engine, but that's more than enough. If you're crazy enough, you can play Dragon Brawl and actually discard a size 3. I've seen people run it. It's so dumb, honestly. Like, size 3s are your main source of what you do in Ancient World. Playing this is like going minus just to draw 2. And you're also paying life, which is just maddening, because, like, it's just not beneficial. You already have enough draw power. You don't need this. You don't need that discard, Dragon Clouds. Oh, it's awful. I mean, it's okay if you play, like, Gang the King deck. Like, you use it to fuel up your drop zone with more Raging Spirits, so then you can still consistently have a decent hand, but then it still costs 2 gauge, which you'd rather use on calling the Gang the King or whatever you're playing. So even so, it's still awful. I don't know. But all I can say is that this deck has not much of a good late game going for it. When you're low on life, this deck just starts falling apart because it's just too much life cost because ancient world problems, like first world problems. uh, okay. Um. So another thing is the deck has a really slow damage output. Like it's really slow in getting in damage because unless you call Champion Lord, you're just hitting like two, and one at most each turn. Like one from Rookie, two from a weapon, and then two from like Billy Knuckles or um three from him, Oni Street. But that's still good. I mean, 6 damage or like, I mean, with Champion Lord, it's like at least um 7. I mean, no, it's like 5 to like 8 you can do if you have Gang the King. I mean, but if any of the other ones, it's like 5 to 8. It's like varies from 5 to 8. Like this can get you to like this with a weapon and Ricky is like 5 damage on board. This is 7 damage. This is 6 damage on board if you have the weapon and Ricky. So it's like it varies. It can work. They have a good spell null, which allows them to put on a lot of offensive pressure, and they can still be defensive because of things like Wrath Trigger and Dragon Prudence. So, and of course yours counter removal. So it's kind of a really good fit for the deck. It can be offensive and defensive when it needs to be. So it's a really good balance in the deck, but it's it's really slow at doing it because they have one glaring problem compared to all the other Ancient World archetypes. This deck cannot search the damn size 3s. They can't use Dragon, where is it? Makings of a Great Dragon, because Makings of a Great Dragon can only search a size 3 Dragon Lord. These are all Raging Spirits, so Raging Spirits have no correlation with Makings of a Great Dragon, so how are you going to get these? Well, you gotta hope to, which is old Ancient World problems, and I don't like that, because old Ancient World problems were very bad Ancient World problems, like, one of the worst things about the deck. Even now, they still have this problem, because if you don't draw any draw power, you get all your, like, supportive monsters, like this and this. I mean, I'm not playing these, and these are okay in their own sense, like Viragros too, but, like, if you draw, like, a handful of these, and, like, no draw power spells, then you're just like gonna lose. Like if you don't draw like one of your 4 to 8 to 12 ways of getting into your size 3. I mean, well, more than that because of the size 3s himself, but I'm saying like spells that can get you closer to them. Oh man. But without a doubt, this deck still has at least a good amount of consistency. E- with the amount of draw power, even though it does lack a search card, it is still very consistent. You have plenty of size 3s to draw into, you have size 0 options, and you still and even so these cards can still be decent to call if you don't have anything. 3 critical from the Glacies, 5-2 from the Demonica, and 5-2-5 from the Thunder Tornado. Not bad calls. And plus, there's less quantities of these cards before any of your Raging Spirits over here, so it's still more likely that you're going to draw into Raging Spirits more than your Dragon Lord support kind of cards. But I digress that this deck has, I believe, one of the most easy matchups against any kind of weak powered deck that just can't hold its own. Like Death Ruler. Death Ruler just loses to this because redirecting the attack and then all this defense, it's practically just as bad as your Hero and Ritter matchup. It's just absolutely terrible. That deck has like almost zero chance of winning against Raging Spirits. Another really great matchup they have is against Dungeon Mix because once you you can Dragon Thunder just about everything in their deck, And if you Dragon Thunder a Tetsuya and then they attack with like a drum and like their weapon, you can just take the hit on like say a Billion Knuckle, and then like Billion Knuckle Soul Guard will go off, and then you get counterattack, destroy the drum, at least get rid of Soul Guard, and then like kill it next turn or something, and then like have Thunder Tornado destroy their weapon, and they start losing a ton of advantage. Or going against something like Shinsengumi, Shinsengumi has like really weak monsters similar to Dungeon Mix. Everything gets hit by Dragon Thunder, just like Dungeon Mix. But at least they have Wolf Amiibo to try and counteract, but then you can just counteract with something like Wrath Trigger, or sometimes they won't even hit you, even if they Wolf Amiibo with a couple of their cards. So it's really great. Also, I think like just the vanilla Oni Street here is like single-handedly probably the best card to call in that matchup, because it's just enough power to annoy them, and then defense to annoy them, and it has a good 3 critical, and baiting out shields and Dragon World just gets your opponent in a very bad position. Like people null like use nulls really badly. I would do a whole video like just how when to null at the right time, but oh god, I don't want to do that. Unless you guys want to do that, want me to do that, just tell me in the comment section below, but I would not enjoy doing that because I think it's a very linear subject, and I don't know why it's such a problem for people to realize when they should nullify. Um Anyways, back onto the deck discussion actually. The deck's worst matchups. I'd say Dungeon Enemies put in the best work against this deck. Meteor Rain just single-handedly fucking annoys the shit out of this deck. Like, it can Burning Meteor destroy anything and then just absolutely wreck, like, all these cards. And then, like, it's 10,000 power. If you're stupid enough to call any of these to the center, then it can get the 3 crit penetrate. And then just keep recalling monsters with their the size 1s and less, and like giving them more gauge with their new item right here. I'm just gonna show it. I hate that they don't put them on the top. The new item right here just also ruins this deck because it hits Billion Knuckle, it hits Champion Lord, it hits Gang the King. It's so scary with Lycus, like the Staff of Adventurer. It's so great against this deck. So they have a really bad time against Dungeon when they get out that weapon, and you can't deal with it just yet because Thunder Tornado is not countered, so it's not like you can go like art like was it Art of Item Blasting and just like do it when they're trying to attack or something. And none of them have like Demon Go to Arcs effect, like where like in the sense where you can destroy a weapon by discarding a card, which would be really great if one of them had it at least. But even so, this deck still can pull through in that matchup. Like I said, if it's against Dungeon, most likely they can use Dragon Thunder, but not usually against Dungeon enemies, unless it's like Bladewing Phoenix. Then they can destroy that. But then they can't destroy Winade. They can't destroy like I don't know not Jade Golem, like Skull Golem Mazbaha or something, or Joker Grenwald if we ever get him. It can't hit like a couple of the size 1s. It's just that it's just pretty good. For this deck, it can go either way, but I still say it's not in their favor. And just about the last bad matchup I think this deck could possibly have, and that's like Ritter. And that's like only due to like power issues. But like once you get out the Gang the King, you can most likely deal with it. And since it keeps redirecting the one attack that it has, you can still use Dragon Prudence, which means it's more. It could be sometimes in your favor. It could be sometimes your opponent's favor. I think it's more in the Ritter player's favor because if they keep getting life using something like Jackknife Gift and also getting extra cards to try and defend the Ritter, it becomes really difficult. And also, since you if you don't have any like if you don't draw a weapon, then these cards can't hit Ritter, or you don't draw a Ricky, you can't hit Ritter. So it's more slow. It goes slower for you than it does the Ritter player. because they can easily get to that life and get the setup. Um, but with that, I'd like to finish up the deck discussion on Raging Spirits. I hope you guys like this video. Subscribe to me for more Buddyfight content. I'm sorry that this was so long again, but going over a deck is very time consuming. And please comment down below what you want to see in the next episode, and I'll see you guys later. Jalen from TBIJalen going out.